When do you believe wrestling became sports entertainment specifically? Was there a single incident from a single company where you thought, well, wrestling's gone forever and sports entertainment is here to stay?
Well, it's always kind of been that, but not to the extreme it is now. And it's always been entertainment. I remember some of the old timers used to argue, no, no, it's not entertainment. But it's the way you would characterize things of what it is. Of course, it's entertainment. Anything is entertainment. This interview that we're doing here is entertainment because you probably won't get a lot of educational value out of it. So it has to be entertainment. But I was riding with this old timer one time, and I've already told you the story, and he was from Ireland. And here's another story that I don't mean to piggyback off of, but I remember one time in like the early 80s, all of a sudden these English guys were dropping into American wrestling. And I went, wait a minute, why are we getting all these British guys, English guys here? And then I read that didn't the BBC take wrestling off TV?
It was on ITV and for decades, and in '86, a new head of ITV basically didn't like wrestling, put it in a worse time slot, and also British wrestling was eating itself up, focusing too much on Big Daddy because he was a giant gimmick who couldn't wrestle, but the kids loved him. But people got sick of it. And
that's something new. A giant guy that couldn't wrestle. That's unheard of.
He was the brother of the promoter. Would you believe?
Oh, well, that makes sense. But I heard that they looked at it as low brow, low rent, and not fitting for their network, and they did all they could to kill it and did a pretty good job. So the guys really couldn't make any money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they come to America. But anyway, I was riding with one of those guys one time, and he was from Ireland. And you may remember the name, maybe not. Timothy Cohagen.
I don't know the name.
He's an old timer. But he was like, a lot of the English guys were what we call shooters because they could actually wrestle. They could take you down and tie you up if you wanted to get cute with them. So he was a history buff and very intelligent man. And if you wanted to learn something, just listen to people who have been there and know what they're talking about. And I just happened to come up with that question one day. Well, when did it start becoming a work, like a pre-planned deal? And he told me this answer that I would have never come up with in 1,000 years. But he told me it came from the old Roman days when they had shows in the Colosseum and how that would work. And they had some brutal days too, because say they brought this guy in to wrestle the star. And they say I was a star and say you were the guy that challenged me. But if you didn't do good, if I just ate you up, well, they could order your death, really. So for me, and say I liked you, I wanted you to look good, I would work with you knowing that the better you look, the better your chances are to survive or not go to a prison camp or something like that. And that's when the work first started. They actually have a scroll somewhere writing down how a match was going to go, who was going to win, how long it was going to go. And now I don't know if this is true or not, like I said, because there's no way to research it. But it does make sense that it started back in the Roman days. And actually then when you had a guy that wanted to make a few bucks, he came up with this idea. Now this may have been, I don't know, when were the Roman days?
Well, they left this country about 460 AD. So we're talking the Jesus times.
Yes, we are. And that's how long that's according to him, that's when the work first started. Not that people would cheat to get ahead of anything, but a fascinating answer. And I never expected that, but that's what he said. So since I couldn't beat him up, I couldn't disagree with him because he could have stopped the car and beat the crap out of him. So I just agreed with him.
In modern professional wrestling, then, when do you think the scales tip from what you knew and loved in what professional wrestling was in the territory days, and especially in the Southern Territories, to where it is now? When do you think the scales tip to sports entertainment?
Well, when WW, the old WWF, when it took over, that just changed everything. You know, that was the same thing as the BBC or the ITV or whatever you called it. You know, moving the time of the wrestling show. Nobody was going to see it, but WWF didn't have that problem. Everybody saw it. Now, this is how they took over. Let's go to Memphis. They would go to Memphis, and Memphis used to do a share of their ad money, would pay the wrestling company to put the show on. But what WWE would do, they just bypassed it, and they bought on another competing station. They bought 1 hour. It's like an infomercial, and that's what they bought. Then they put their own ads on the show. Of course, the station loved it because they might get $2,000, $3,000 for this hour, and not have to worry about collecting ad money or doing anything. And the guys in the control room, they would just put the tape on and they'd sit back, smoke a cigarette for an hour and watch the show. So it was great. And they did that all across the country. They did it in New Orleans and Atlanta and Miami and New York and Chicago. And when they just inundated the country with the WWF product, that's how they got a foothold in the country. Now, once you see the bells and whistles of the WWF product, even then, which was primitive by today's standards, but once you saw that, it was so far advanced from what the local promotion could put on. Once you see that, you didn't want to watch the local show anymore. And the local show's talent also dropped because you couldn't make any money. So what you were getting, the local promotions were getting like guys who had wrestled 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, you know, and nobody wanted to see them. And eventually he just got the stranglehold on the country and he took it over. The last remaining territories actually were the two that I made the most money in, which was Memphis and Puerto Rico. And I think Puerto Rico is actually still running.
Yeah,
and Memphis has another company there. They run, but it's nothing like the old days. Nothing.
No, I remember seeing a video of Puerto Rico from a few years ago, and I swear I thought I was watching something from the 80s because they're still probably running on like Betamax camcorders and stuff. The quality was so terrible.
Sure, they are. So when I went down there, you can forget super duper cameras and stuff. They would do it on just regular hand cameras. And they would send it to the station, and because the station, it wasn't a professional really. It looked like an independent promotion that didn't spend a lot of money. So that's what it was.